Melzagard will be the next SSR Plus character coming out in October, so here's everything you need to know about Melza and whether or not he is worth pulling for. So let's get into his attack skills. So for his basic attack, he attacks a single target with 2 hits for 120% of his attack, and for his ultimate attack, he attacks all enemies with 4 hits for 48% of his max HP, and he revives a defeated ally with 100% of their HP up to 4 times per battle, which is the same mechanic as Phoenix Man's revive mechanic. And if you have his keepsake, you'll unlock his ultra ultimate attack where he'll deal 64% of his max HP as damage, and he'll be able to revive up to 6 allies per battle. Do note that these revives can stack with Phoenix Man, so you can use both revivers on the same team to get a maximum of up to 12 revives. Moving on to his passive skills, so for his regular passive, after any character's action in Melza's row, they'll trigger Evolve to the main target, which removes Specialized Unyielding after the character has attacked. So it is similar to Breakthrough, but a little different. Breakthrough breaks these Undying shields during that attack, whereas Evolve cannot break the shield during their attack, but it destroys the shield after they have finished their attack, which leaves the enemy exposed to dot. And he also permanently grants immunity against silence to his entire row, which is a mechanic that blocks enemies from activating their ultimate attacks. Now unfortunately on global, this immunity is currently useless as Giro is the only unit able to inflict silence, which he's not currently available in the game, so this is kind of a bummer. But if you manage to limit break him to 5 stars, then he will also be able to grant stun immunity to his entire row, which will help out against those Gale Wind users. And if you manage to unlock his 5p awakening, then the evolve mechanic will be triggered after any action from surrounding allies, so anyone directly next to Melzagard. Going through his awakened passive, so at the start of battle he grants 50% shield rate to the entire team, which lasts for 2 rounds. So shield rate will be able to buff the effectiveness of specialized guard. So for example, if Drive Knight's Call grants 600% of specialized guard, then shield rate will buff that by 50%, and then you'll receive a total of 900% of specialized guard, which is essentially a lot of free HP. He also triggers Reborn after taking fatal damage, which when an ally is present, he recovers 50% of his HP up to 2 times per battle. If you manage to unlock his second awakening, then he'll grant 70% shield rate, as well as being able to revive up to 3 times per battle. Going through his enhancements, so for his talent page, unlock both pages and upgrade all of the base HP stats, damage reduction buffs, and ult damage if you can. Otherwise, those marked in the blue circles are also good stats to upgrade if you do have the spare talent points to do so. For his damage sigils, you can use piercing sigils, and for his support sigils, you can use vitality sigils. In regards to his limit break, get him to 5 stars as soon as possible, as you'll be able to grant your row stun immunity, which will help out against Gale Wind users. In regards to his awakening, at a minimum, get him to 4p to attain his block rate, block, and crit resistance rate buffs. And if you want, you can get his 5p if you do want that extra chance of inflicting evolve if you do go up against a lot of those specialized unyielding teams. Moving on to his gears, so for his gear set, the best set for him would be a drive set, otherwise the next best set is either a machine or ninja, followed by battle, suit, or magic. And with his gears, you would want all 4 of them having HP bonus. And for his buff gears, all of them should have HP, with your villain gear having HP bonus and flat attack, your esper gear having flat HP and block rate, and your dragon gear having flat HP and damage reduction rate. And if you manage to get an augmentation from upgrading your dragon class gear, getting a tenacity augment would be the best for tanky units, otherwise block is also a good alternative. Now to go through some team compositions with Melzagard. So when he does come out, the top meta team would be an example 1 where you have Deepseekin, and it should be Melzagard within the same column, because with Melzagard you do need him to be fast in order to activate his reviving mechanics, which is what you definitely want. So with Melzagard, you'd either want him to be in the same column as Deepseeking, and if you do have that Awaken 2, then you can activate his ult an extra 2 times per round, which is going to be very ideal, or you could have him sped up with Flashy Flash in the same column as well if you want to use another strong unit like TTM in the same column as Deepseeking to do more damage. But either way, Melzagard should be using his ultimate a lot during your battle. Otherwise, Phoenix Man and him will synergize very well, so both of those will be your main espers in your team, with Drive Knight being the main core used, and then Tank Top Masa also a very good alternative to use if you can counter those Goketsu pullers, and just a very tanky unit overall. So this will be the strongest team when Melza does drop. Otherwise, an example 2 is essentially the exact same team. There's not really a lot of other team compositions you could go for with Melzagard, but I decided to put a Geru Gantroop core instead of another Drive Drive Knight team, because realistically, a lot of people still use Giru's core, including myself, because they can't invest a lot into Drive Knight at the moment. So this is also not a bad alternative. It's essentially the same team, but just keep in mind with this team that Melzagard is more vulnerable outside of Drive Knight's core. And if you don't have all these units, then the units on the right are also some alternatives that you can slot into the missing units that you don't have currently. Now to go through some lower end examples. So if you do have Deep Seeking, then definitely pair him up with Melzagard in the same column, as they're going to synergize very well with each other, because then you can speed up Melzagard and activate his ultimate countless times throughout the battle, alongside Drive Knight's core. And then if you do have a Spitzer, having that Sonic V2, which was given to free for majority of players, would be good for PvP. Otherwise you can swap him out for another unit in PvE. But this is a general good setup for the majority of players, that they have access to these units, and then the other two slots can be whatever alternatives that you have. That could also be within this range on the right side of the screen. Now I did decide to include alternatives such as SSR Boris and Carnage Kabuto, because over time the hero backup stick will be releasing more and more SSR units. So I also included Child Emperor because he's available in the purple ticket summon. So over time this alternatives list is going to update constantly on and on, like a Metal Bat coming out in the next hero backup stick when the next hero backup stick does come out. And for the second example, if you didn't manage to pull for Drive Knight, hopefully you do have Giragantrip's core, because you can still use Giragantrip's core with Melzagard, but it does make him less effective than if you paired him up with Drive Knight. But it's still a good alternative because you do have 2 espers out of the way, so all you need is 2 grapplers like Deep Seeking or another grappler alternative, and then just 2 random units to fill up the rest of your team. Just to keep in mind as well, he does have shield rate, so you don't need to use other units like Goketsu or Tank Top Vegan, since they are a waste and they die very quickly. So you no longer need to use those units if you do have Melzagard, but if you don't have Melzagard, then those units are highly recommended for your team composition. So this is what some lineup compositions can look like with Melzagard. So going through the main takeaways from this unit, he is able to fully revive allies multiple times, much like Phoenix Man, so he will keep the battle going for so much longer. And speaking of which, his revives can stack with Phoenix Man, so that means that you can get a maximum of 12 revives, which will change the PvP meta and become quite hard to counter. His passive also boosts Drive Knight's core, as shield rate basically grants a lot of free HP for just being on your team, which will help out against the strong corrosion damage that you get inflicted within the first couple rounds. He also grants immunity to silence and stun, which whenever Giru does come out, even though his meta is far gone, but you can at least counter him and prepare for him, as well as being able to finally deal with those pesky Gale Wind users if you have been frustrated by him. And finally, he is great for PvP. The reviving mechanic alone will be heavily sought after during the next couple of years, so his longevity can last for a very long time in regards to PvP. Now, going through a couple of his cons, in order for Melza to be useful, he does require a lot of investment, as he doesn't have any HP boosting passives, which leaves him very vulnerable outside of Drive Knight's core. So if you only have enough investment for 1 or 2 units, let's say, that are very important to invest into, such as Deep Seeking, then you are going to struggle with a lowly invested Melzagard. And to continue on from that point, you will struggle because his revives can only activate when using his ult, meaning that if he dies too quickly or if he gets stunned, if you don't have his upgraded passive, then he can no longer activate his revive mechanic, leaving him very vulnerable. That also includes if you do get swooped away by Phoenix Man, so you will need to be very careful in that regard, as not having a very tanky Melzagard will cost you a lot in PvP. Unlike Phoenix Man, where you don't need to put too much investment and can still do fine because his revives are based from his Awaken passive, which basically activates at any given time. So should you pull for Melzagard? So for free to play and low spenders, I would recommend to skip him, as he's more of a PvP based unit and he will be vulnerable to Gorobus if you cannot invest heavily onto him. But if you do like PvP and you don't have Phoenix Man, then you can pull for Melzagard with his keepsake, as he grants 6 revives from his keepsake, which is much cheaper than trying to get his Awaken 2, much like Phoenix Man. However, if you already have Phoenix Man, then I would recommend skipping Melzagard, as having 1 reviving unit is more than enough to survive in the future, as the esper slots become more competitive, which is why for mid spenders I wouldn't recommend pulling for him if you already have Phoenix Man, unless you really do like his kit, and if you can somehow manage to fit 2 revivers in your team as we go further along into this meta. And just to keep in mind in future, Phoenix Man's Awakened Stone does get eventually slotted into the purple ticket summons, which in my opinion, he's the much better reviving unit only because he can be used outside of Drive Knight's core and his passive will activate no matter what and you don't need to rely on his ultimate attacks. So just keep that in mind. If you do want a reviving unit in future, I would probably lean more towards Phoenix Man. If you can't get either of them right now, that's fine, because in future they should both be able to be pulled during the purple ticket summons. And for high spenders, in order to stay strong in PvP, then having him with Phoenix Man will make you unstoppable with 12 potential revive chances, so make sure you do pull for him with his keepsake. Now, because his extra revives comes from his keepsake, his second awakening isn't required unless you want that extra shield rate to help your team more defensively for the first couple of turns. Otherwise, I wouldn't really regard the Awaken 2 as a much high priority. And now I present the predicted SSR Plus timeline for Global. So we've received an update for this month, but unfortunately it has nothing to do with Gira, with both King for the third time as well as Garo for the second time being released on the next Awakening wheel, which is hella disappointing as both of those units are way out of meta, so it is a massive scam in my opinion, just a massive cash grab. And with the disappointing second anniversary we received, no news of Pig God was also present, so I've decided to leave the remaining special event units as NA since I really can't predict what Moonton will do next, as both Gira and Subterranean King should have already been released before Drive Night even came out. Otherwise, the schedule for the monthly banners is still fairly accurate, so Watchdog Man should be next, but I wouldn't be surprised if they instead skipped the Doggo and then rushed Gorobas instead, which unfortunately it will hurt the free-to-play player base, but we shall wait and see what Moonton can cook up for the next month. Anyways, that wraps up the end of the video. I'd love to give shoutouts to all of my YouTube members, as you guys are massive contributors in making this type of content possible. If you're new to the channel and enjoyed this video, then please subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell to stay up to date in keeping your One Punch Man account the strongest. Feel free to leave a like and a comment down below, and check out my Discord and membership links in the description for if you have any questions, and either myself or the community will help answer for you. So anyways, that's all for today, and I will catch you all next time.